The base is dropped on the final Monday of 2018. It's New Year's Eve, December 31st. Soccer Down here is live. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning for a couple of hours as we are the pre-game to your New Year's Eve festivities. We're going to get into New Year's resolutions for Major League Soccer today. And we're going to talk about, see, Gwen's pumped. We're going to talk about all the different teams in the league and what their New Year's resolutions should be. She's got opinions about Orlando already, and we'll get into those in a minute. What the New Year's resolutions should be for each team, and we can get into New Year's resolutions for the league as a whole. But as we close out 2018, guys, this to me feels like the biggest year in Major League Soccer history. I don't know if everybody around the country sees it that way, and we are, we have a different perspective based off what we've seen firsthand here in Atlanta, but this feels like a year, right now to me, it feels like a year that changes MLS, and I think as we look back on it in 5 years, it will be that watershed moment for this league going forward. John, I mean, this feels like, I don't know what MLS 4.0 is yet, or if this is just a continuation of 3.0. I don't know, but this feels like going into 2019, this league is in a very different place than it was last year at this time.
And really, I think all you have to do, and being based here in Atlanta, I think really all you have to do is look at MLS Cup when you had 73,000 of your closest friends in one place celebrating the last game of the year, and the rise of a franchise in its second year that is blowing up attendance records across the planet, not just in the United States, but consistently being top whatever when it comes to matches across the planet. And when you have something like this that is happening in this particular part of MLS, and the league has the opportunity to take the challenge of Arthur Blank and go forward with it and be in these new markets that are coming up, be in a Miami, be in a Nashville, you've got Cincinnati coming in, and you can recognize the fever that these fans have for this particular product right now. And we can get into other cities as we go, and we'll do that with resolutions. But I think that what you've seen here should be an example going forward for MLS 3.0 plus, since we don't know what 4.0 looks like. The 3.0 train is really doing some special things, and I think that the league can continue to add to that with these new markets, with new players coming in, with the increased quality of players and things like that. So you're not just the retirement home anymore. You're that place where young talent wants to be so they can ply their trade, learn, improve, advance, and go to the European theater for their next gig. And so I think that you're in that very special time right now. And I think that the fact that we've been front and center for it in 2018 kind of gives us a glimpse of what 3.0 plus can be.
Jarrett, let's take it a step further, though. I mean, I think most people around the country are going to talk about MLS 2018 in Atlanta, and that's going to be the conversation. What else has pushed MLS to another level? Is it honestly just Atlanta, or is it increased talent around the league? Is it, what else can other teams do? I feel like it's more than just Atlanta. Maybe I'm just being a little hopeful in that, but I feel like this league is really poised to make that jump that Don Garber's talked about for a number of years, about becoming one of the world's elite leagues. I don't think it's as far off as it used to be.
No, I don't either. I think it's part Atlanta, part LAFC, part teams kind of having, revitalizing themselves and kind of rebuild themselves, and Seattle continuing to come back from the dead. It seems simple, but look, when your marquee programs or in your marquee teams do well, that's good for the league. Aside from on the field stuff, I think one of the big things for this league has been their willingness to embrace technology and to embrace an ever-changing technological world, more so than maybe a couple other sports in America have done. And they've been really quick to lean into the next generation in terms of streaming and making everything available and making it easy to reach out to stuff and affordable. Imagine trying to reach out and get a hold of any baseball or football game any given night just by jumping on a $5 a month subscription channel. They've made it easily accessible. They've made it easy to get. I think that's going to go a long way towards getting into people's homes and getting into people's eyes, especially in a world now where when we look at numbers about, what TV numbers did they pull, we have to consider, what did the streaming numbers pull?
This is uncharted territory, in my opinion, in terms of just sports as a whole. There is not another league around the world, and especially throughout any sports in the United States, that has launched the way MLS has and has grown the way MLS has and is just changing what sports can be. Because, you have your established leagues, and you look, and you mentioned streaming, and you mentioned being accessible and being open. You compare MLS to the National Hockey League, and the National Hockey League is coming from decades and decades of history and tradition, and they're trying to embrace that new world, whereas MLS, that new world is all they've ever known. It's a different perspective on it, and I feel like this league is really set to turn the corner in terms of what it is, how big it can be. I really hope that there are other Atlantas out there. And not just in sheer numbers, not just in sheer attendance numbers, although that would be great too, because that does help the bottom line. I think it's about the attention and about the connection. And this is something that front offices around this league and the league as a whole has to embrace even more. Being open and being accessible and being part of your community is very big. And I think we've seen Major League Soccer and just soccer in the United States as a whole have success with that. But you have to do that now with no fear, no shackles, no glass ceilings, none of that. Because what has happened here should show Chicago and Dallas and Kansas City and San Jose and every other team in this league that you can build something where your team is a big part of the sports fabric of your city. And you do that by building a connection with your city. It sounds simple. It is simple when you boil it down to what it is. It's not easy to do. And Atlanta was able to do that with the freedom of a new brand, a new club, a new day for soccer in the city, and play off of all the seeds that had been planted. Yes, absolutely. But they did it in the right way, and they built that connection up before kickoff even. And you had it. And that's why this team is talked about in a way that others aren't talked about in their markets. This is why you have a fan base that is engaged as they are, that is emotionally invested in this team to the point that people are freaking out about a free agent signing for depth in December, when in most markets, the MLS team is not being talked about, period. That has to change across the country. And if I'm going to give a New Year's resolution to the league as a whole, it would be to stop thinking that soccer and the league and your club in other markets, stop thinking you're a second-class citizen. Don't go out and be arrogant and say that you demand this attention. Go out and earn the attention. That's the difference to me, and this is where I've always had issues with soccer fans and the soccer media and mentality about, well, you just have to support your team, period, or you just have to go do this because this is the way it's always been done. No. The clubs have to earn that coverage and earn those tickets being bought and earn that emotional connection. And they have to find ways to do that. And one way is to put a good product on the field. That's a pretty simple way. That's why we do sports, you know. The other is to get out and put the work in. But stop thinking that it can't be done. Because I think they go hand in hand. I think so many times clubs in this league and the league as a whole has felt like, well, we can't be that big. Yes, you can. Stop. You can. But you have to put the work in. One of the most underrated parts of Atlanta United's success is all of that work that Darren did in 2015 and 2016, going out and meeting people, having a beer, talking soccer, listening to people. Skate and the marketing team and the digital team. Excellent work in going out and listening to people. That's the biggest thing. And I want to see other MLS clubs, and not just the new clubs. The old clubs have to do this too. Go out and listen to the people that could be putting that flag up in front of their house. Go out and listen to the people who could be buying those tickets. Go out and listen to the people at Sports Talk Radio and your local newspaper. Listen to why maybe they don't commit the coverage that you think you should be getting. Go out and listen. Go out and build these relationships, because that's what it comes down to. And this league is at a point now where it can be what it is here. But it has to believe it, and the league and the clubs have to go put that work in. There is no obligation for anybody, whether their kid plays soccer or whether they watch the Premier League or whether they grew up playing in high school. There's no obligation for that person to be a advocate and ambassador for the local team. The local team has to earn that. Now it's time to go out and do it, because there's a platform to do it, and a platform where this league is not trying to say, look, we're just trying to keep the doors open. It's a platform to go out and say, yeah, we can be one of the biggest leagues in this country in any sport, and yes, we can be one of the biggest leagues in the world. We're going to show you, and we need your help to do it. That's the mentality that I want to see change. So if I'm giving a New Year's resolution to MLS, it's to have that belief and have that faith in your product and have that faith in this country as a soccer country that you can be that big. So it's time to go put the work in and go do it and build those relationships. And yeah, it takes time. Have the patience for those relationships to blossom. But it's time to go do it. It's time to stop coming up with the same old excuses about why you can't draw fans, why you can't get the attention in the local market and the local media, and why you're not as successful as another club. It's time to drop all that. It's time for a new day. John, New Year's resolution for the league as a whole, what would it be?
Oh, brother. So you give me the biggest of the big pictures for the end of the first segment.
But you don't have to give a. I mean, I went big picture, but you can give any New Year's resolution for the league. I mean, what is something that the league should be resolving to do in 2019? It can be small, it can be big, it can be whatever you want it to be.
For me, it would be to continue your three-dimensional presence when it comes to your media output. And by that, I mean, we've seen MLS Digital do some things. I'd like to see them do more. I'd like to see them do more long-form storytelling. I'd like to see features on teams, towns, supporters groups, particular athletes, so you can work on the inclusion of every fan who would be interested. To draw them in, I think the first thing you need to do is have compelling storylines and compelling stories. So I'd like to see from a league level recognition of those storylines and make sure that those storylines can be accessed easily so everyone can learn going forward.
Jarrett, what about you? What's a New Year's resolution you would like to make for the league as a whole?
Keep your momentum, and don't overcomplicate things. What you're doing is working as a league. Something comes up, then you realize this is, we have an option to do something new, but it makes sense. That's fine. But don't overcomplicate this. Just continue to grow and continue to be smart about it, and continue to be accessible while not learning from the mistakes that other leagues and other sports have made, not just around the country, but around the world.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a big time for MLS, and I hope that they're thinking that. I hope that they're thinking this is that big time, and this can be that big time. It's not a do or die moment. It's not that kind of big time. It's a big time as an opportunity. I think the do or die moments are gone for this league. It's not going anywhere. It's okay now. You're past keeping the doors open. What's next? What's the next move? And that's what's going to be exciting to follow with Major League Soccer. Before we go to break, Shiva has one that's kind of general about the whole league. It says, I would say teams like Dallas, Houston, Colorado, and some others, even New York Red Bulls, need to work on their marketing and attendance. New York City FC needs to get in a new stadium, and they may get their attendance. All good points around the league, Shiva. If you guys have resolutions about individual teams, we're going to start getting into those in the next segment. We're going to work backwards. We're going to start with the new kids on the block, FC Cincinnati, and then work backwards from the supporter shield table. So the teams we're going to talk about in the next segment are the ones who might need a few resolutions and some allocation money and some better decision-making and lots of things. And we're going to talk about those, starting with Cincinnati after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. New Year's Eve special New Year's resolutions for the league. We can go U.S. Soccer, and we can talk NWSL, and we can talk U.S. Women's National Team, and all the MLS teams, and USL, and NPSL, and NISA, and U.S. Soccer Federation, and whatever else. We can give New Year's resolutions to whatever if we feel like it. But we are going to talk through all of the MLS teams for sure. Chandler Creel has a New Year's resolution for the league. No more games on Twitter. I disagree, Chandler, and I'll tell you why. I would say no more games, and there's not, so it's not no more. I would say no games exclusively on Twitter. Now, I know you're going to tell me that the games that are on Twitter are only in Spanish language on TV. And yeah, I think this is something the league does need to figure out. Back in the day when team was on national Spanish language TV, you could still do an English language local broadcast. And that would be, I think, one way to deal with this. I'm all for figuring out the TV deals and making as much money as possible because that's how the league's going to grow. I don't know if it is as productive as it used to be to have games exclusively in Spanish in this league, and the only alternative would be for the game to be on Twitter. I think maybe in a couple of years that will be a much easier thing. I think as watching games on Twitter becomes more of a thing. But it does hurt a little bit right now. Maybe it's just that awkward time of getting through it to where it's more accepted. I don't know, but I would say no games exclusively on Twitter. I don't think we're ready for those types of things yet, unless Twitter is going to pony up big-time stupid cash. And it'd have to be so far above the market value, Jarrett, I think, for it to really be worth it right now because of the hit that they would take in terms of people who don't watch games on Twitter. I think it's an interesting balance between these types of things as we move forward.
Yeah, no need to get cute. If you want to simulcast, that's fine. And just give me something up a local broadcast for God's sakes, please, at some point with all this. Because I think back to a couple of games they had just on Twitter this year, and the play-by-play was not great. Not great. It wasn't good. I was not enjoying it. Aside from that, I mean, if you guys want to simulcast it, fine. I get it. We're moving in that direction. Baseball did that too last year and frustrated a lot of people by putting games on Facebook. And there was no source anywhere else. There was no local channel to watch it. It was just you were at the mercy of whoever was calling that Facebook game.
Yeah. That is a good point about the announcing side of it. It's not. And I'm not talking about specific play-by-play or analysts in terms of not being good. I think my issue with it was when they would do these games on Twitter, the commentary was not taken as seriously. It was more fun and jokey, and I think that's something the league has to be very careful about as it goes forward. To take those steps that we talked about in the last segment about becoming a big deal and becoming a bigger presence and a respected presence both in the soccer world and in the sports world in the United States. I don't think you get there by being silly. I don't think you get there by taking your product as a joke and as just for fun. I think you have to take it seriously. And to me, the way you do that is you just call the game. And sure, you can have a lot of variety in how you call a game. Everybody approaches it differently. I mean, Ray Hudson has a lot of success, and he has a very unique style. Yesterday, the NFL experimented with a game with Pat McAfee, who has been doing a podcast at Barstool, and I think he's moved out on his own now with SiriusXM-FC. And he brought a very unique style and perspective to it, but it was in the context of calling a game normally. And that's the same with Ray Hudson. It's not the overall presentation of the broadcast is jokey. There's a difference. You can have a joking element, John, I think, as long as it's not the overriding theme of the broadcast as, we're not going to take this too seriously and we're just going to have fun. I don't think that works.
It shouldn't be open night at the Chuckle Hut. And when you do something like that, I think what you do is you drag down your own quality and then the public perception of how, A, you perceive yourself, and B, how others perceive you. And that's a dangerous slope. I didn't know about the Pat McAfee thing yesterday, so I'm going to have to ask you about that offline a little more, or even online here on the show. But
yeah,
I
I've heard
think
one clip, and it was fun. It was fun because, I mean, his whole thing is special teams and when punters and kickers do crazy things, and you had a crazy moment, and it was in his game, and he had a blast with it, and that was fun. I think it's, again, like I'm cool with it being, if you have a jokester in the crew, that's okay. But if everybody is trying to get their jokes in on stage, then it feels weird. It feels a little
and if you're cutting, and in the process of you telling a joke, you're cutting on a particular athlete or you're cutting on a particular team, that doesn't do your league any good.
No, for sure.
Totally and I think that from a production perspective, if you take the production seriously, doesn't matter what form it takes, if it's traditional television, if it's Facebook, if it's Twitter, if it's wherever. But I think that if you take the production seriously, if you take the sport seriously, if you take the matchup seriously, then people will understand, okay, this is a quote unquote traditional broadcast, but it's on a different platform. And I think that as long as you take that approach of doing things solidly when it comes to production and presentation, I think that you can put it on Twitter and you can put it on Facebook, just not do it exclusively, because not everyone's eyes are gravitating toward those particular social media platforms. And we know what LAFC is doing on YouTube TV, and I'd love to know what their numbers were by the end of the year too.
That's not the same thing, I don't think. I wouldn't put it in the same category, because that is YouTube TV, and there were others around the league who did this. I believe ESPN Plus did this with Chicago in the Chicago market, where they were the local broadcaster. They're presenting the game in a normal way, and LAFC experimented some with it, but it wasn't completely different. But they were replacing just the local broadcast, and they paid to do it. And they ponied up. So that's a big part of it. If Twitter wanted to do something different, and this is totally just off the cuff and trying to think of ways that, okay, you want to expand it and you want to give something different, look at the things that ESPN has done with their different casts of
the mega cast,
with the semifinals and college football championship and that type of stuff. If you want to do something like that with Twitter, where you're carrying the game in a different way, and going in it is not going to be a traditional broadcast, do that. Do something like that. Do a player's room. Do something.
What if you did that for MLS Cup? If you did a mega cast for MLS Cup,
that'd be cool. If you had the traditional broadcast, you've got English and Spanish that are over the air. If you do something where you have, coaches from around the league, if you have something where you have players from around the league, like, you could do some different things with it that could be pretty cool. And that would be something MLS could absolutely do on Twitter and have a lot of fun with and get really creative with. That'd be cool. That'd be a really cool element to do it. Before we go to break, Tofka TLC chimes in on general MLS resolutions. Demand better from your lower-performing clubs, demand certain investment in on-field product, marketing, and infrastructure, or face financial penalty / reduced revenue share. This nickel-and-dime ownership style has to stop. Act like you own a professional sports franchise. I would love to know who exactly is nickel and diming these days, because I think that's an old argument. I do. And I'm not picking on you, Tofka, because this happens all around the league and it happens all around the country, that this is a go-to. I don't know if this is necessarily the case anymore. You're going to have teams who spend less money on players, and that's fine, because there's different ways to build a successful team. We've seen that in this league. We've seen it in other sports. So that part's cool. I think even your New England Revolutions, who a lot of people point fingers at as a nickel and dime club, they're building a $30-40 million training facility right now, and they are exploring stadium options in Boston, which is not exactly an easy place to do it. So they're trying. They're doing things. I don't know who the nickel and dimers are, and I don't think there's as many of them as there used to be. I don't think it's nearly as big of a thing as it used to be. I think what it comes back to is quality of how you're doing things and who you're bringing in, and trying to build those relationships more than spending a bunch of money on marketing. Because let's be real about Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta, yeah, they've put up billboards. Yeah, they've spent money on things, but did they like blitz the city with marketing coming into 2017? No. They gave out flags, and that was probably one of the smartest things that they did. They did the Flag Friday thing and gave out flags, and people put their flags up, and that's been consistent. That wasn't a huge marketing expense. That was just a very smart plan that, honestly, I think built on what Orlando did with the car magnets, because they did something similar with car magnets where you could get free car magnets and hand them out, and the Orlando City car magnets all over Central Florida. And that was a good starting point as that club came together. The Flag Friday could be one of the most important things that Atlanta United did from day one, because it took them away from having to spend a stupid amount of money on marketing and put that marketing in the hands of the fans and their advocates and their ambassadors who are out there representing the club. That was a big thing. I don't think you have to spend stupid money. I think you have to do it in a very intelligent way. And that's what I want to see for MLS. And I'm with you on act like you own a professional sports franchise. Put out that perception of not being arrogant, not being above everything, but also being a big deal. And people will start to react to that. Couple more before we go to break. Jorge El Mataflo. A lot of times the English language simulcast for games, and this was on Twitter, was done by people who normally broadcast in Spanish, and their demeanor on the broadcast didn't change. But it certainly didn't work in English. I'm a huge fan of the Univision broadcasting team. They're incredible. I totally agree. And it's not easy. Like, I couldn't call a game in Spanish, so you don't want to hear that. And I don't think they meant to be disrespectful, but at times it kind of came off that way because I think just the vibe was too jokey. That can work. I guess it can work in Spanish, but I've also heard guys like Jorge Perez Navarro, who I didn't take as jokey and diminishing the product that he was calling. I thought he was outstanding. And Fernando Palomo, who has called games in English with ESPN. I think both of them do an outstanding job bouncing from language to language, but staying true to their style. And it's probably more of just the vibe and the production style on the Twitter broadcast that would be frustrating to me, because it just felt like it wasn't taken as seriously as it should be. Tyler Rice with one more on the league side before we start getting into the teams in the next segment. My MLS New Year's resolution is to allow unlimited private chartered flights. If the league wants to be taken as big time, then forcing teams to fly commercial has to stop. Travel distances in the league is hard enough without having to also fly commercial. Tyler, what I would tell you is give teams the choice to fly chartered, because it's not always the best choice. And while the league has grown a lot, there are some markets that you don't necessarily have to fly charter all the time. Atlanta, for one. Atlanta took one charter flight during the season. And Atlanta's definitely not a nickel and dime club. But they only took one. They didn't take their other three during the season because they didn't need to, flying out of Atlanta. You know, you're able to do everything you need to do, and probably in a more efficient way at times than the charter side. They took the charter from San Jose back to Atlanta because you had the RSL game in two days. So you wanted to get back as soon as possible. Now, the playoffs, the league chartered flights for everybody. The league arranged that and took care of it, and everybody flew charters in the playoffs. I think you're going to see some teams that would still opt to fly commercial as needed, and that's completely fine. The the NBA didn't fly chartered exclusively until fairly recently, and I don't know if they still do it exclusively. It wasn't that long ago that NBA teams flew commercial, and man, that's more awkward than a soccer team flying commercial when you've got a 7-foot guy trying to squeeze in to a row on a commercial flight. That's not exactly easy. I think they need to take the restrictions off, Tyler. I'm with you there, and let teams figure out how they want to spend. If they want to commit those dollars to it, if they want to work on a partnership or create a sponsorship or what have you, go do it, have at it, and do what you want to do for your club. I'm with you there, but I don't think necessarily every team would take every trip as a charter if that was to happen. Charters are getting a little more difficult to book because I think some companies are reducing the number of planes that they have out there for charters. I know some colleges, John, I think we've talked about this before. I know some colleges are having problems with finding charters, especially some of your second-tier schools, because there's just not as many available.
Right, and that's the whole hook in all of it. I mean, and I've also noticed that the number of actual businesses that charter flights is diminished over the last couple of years too. So you don't have 6 or 7 charter companies who are doing it, and then I think it was back in 2015 when the NBA finally paired with Delta to get larger flights, and so you're talking commercial airline now. So it's a bit of a dicey slope sometimes, and especially with the way that businesses are, it's like, all right, so we'd like to use you, or we don't do that anymore. So it's having to balance that idea of commercial versus charter.
Yeah, just find the balance. Let teams figure that out for themselves. That would be a good thing for the league going forward. All right, we're going to take a break, come back and get into team by team, New Year's resolutions for Major League Soccer. Share yours with us on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, New Year's Eve edition. Overreaction Monday edition. So if you have overreactions, we'll take those too. But we're getting into New Year's resolutions for each team around MLS. And we're going to start with the new kids on the block, FC Cincinnati. They have been somewhere in between, I think, the vibe that Minnesota and Atlanta put out in 2017. And I would put LAFC closer to the vibe that Atlanta put out as we're going to be a big deal. Just watch us. Minnesota was like, we're going to take our time. Be patient with us. Cincinnati's somewhere in between that. And Jarrett, what is your New Year's resolution for FC Cincinnati as we go into 2019, their first year in Major League Soccer?
Not mean to the mean way, but find your lane and stay in it your first year. Be realistic about your expectations, and don't get too high, don't get too low, and then go from there.
John, what about you?
In year one, I know you're creating an artificial demand with the stadium that you're creating. Don't exclude, even though you know that a lot of folks are going to want to come see your product, and this might be a New Year's resolution for the next couple of seasons. But just because your place may not be as large as the one that you're playing in at Nippert, don't exclude those that want to come and continue to grow your audience, even though you're creating artificial demand with a smaller stadium when it gets completed.
How do you do that?
I think it goes out to what they've been doing initially and just working in the community and making sure that everyone still is a part of the process, even if you can't go to a game for one reason or another. Just try to continue community engagement as best as you have to make sure that everybody still is as engaged and has the opportunity to share in the experience. And if that's public viewings outside the stadia going forward or something like that, always continue to try to make sure that folks are engaged if they can't get in the door on game
that's
days.
Something I feel like every team needs to do for sure, because we've always had this mentality around the league, and we've talked about it here, that the Atlanta United fan base is not just the people who are in the stadium for a home game. I think that's been the mentality around the league, though. And Cincinnati will be a bit of a test case with that, because, you're not going to be able to have 40,000 at your new stadium. It's going to be 26.5. But that's right around your average anyway in USL. But the way you grow is, don't just put that cap and say, well, 26.5 is the most people we can have interested in this team on a game day in our market. No. Go out and have your pub partners and your public viewings for people who can't go to the game, and work on that side of it and build that audience bigger than just people who buy a ticket. That's one thing Atlanta's done really well. For me, I'm kind of along the same lines as Jarrett. I think you have to be patient, and especially the way that they're coming in. They're bringing Alan Koch in. They're bringing a lot of USL players in. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride at times. They've invested, but not invested in a blow the doors off kind of way. So have some patience. You're going to have mistakes made. You're going to have things happen. Don't deviate from your plan too quickly. Roll with what you have. See how this year goes. I think they have the talent to compete for a playoff spot. I think it's going to be a bit of a stretch, but they have the talent to compete for the bottom end of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, because I think the East is fairly wide open. If you don't get in year one, that's okay. Just have some patience and build a plan for the long term. That's going to be the key for Cincinnati. Jarrett, kick us off on San Jose. What is your New Year's resolution for your Earthquakes, who were the worst team in Major League Soccer in 2018?
Try not to suck.
Fair enough. Try not to suck.
That's the bumper sticker.
That's a good plan. I don't think that's going to sell a lot of tickets. I don't think that's a tagline you want to do commercials around, but yeah, true. John, what about you?
Be patient with Almeida. Let him grow it his way. Don't backseat drive the whole thing. Just let him do his thing.
Yeah, I'll take it a little bit of a step further. Put complete trust in Matias Almeida, because they don't have a vision at the moment. I don't know who the San Jose Earthquakes are, and this is a recurring theme at this level of teams who had bad years. What's the vision? What's the identity? Who are you? How do you describe the Earthquakes in a nutshell? I don't know. I don't have one. I can't describe how they play. I can't describe what their identity is. I don't know who the San Jose Earthquakes are. give Matias Almeida the resources to create that plan for you. Even if he's not going to be there for 10 years, tap into what you have right now, and you need to let him set that long-term vision for the club. Trust in him and let him do that. I mean, you're in a situation right now with the Quakes where your academy director, Paul Holliker, left and went to Houston, and you haven't replaced him. And you're having issues with teams coming in and taking your talent and scouting your best young players, and feels a little rudderless on that side of it. So give Almeida the opportunity to work from top to bottom and create the identity for who the San Jose Earthquakes are going forward. And I think it'll pay off. I really do. It's not going to be a one-year turnaround, though. I don't see that at all. Speaking of visions and identities, before we go to break, let's jump into the Orlando situation. New Year's resolutions for Orlando City, Jarrett.
How about consistency, even if it's bad? Just, whether it's JOC or whether it's somebody else, give them a little bit of time and consistency to see what works and what doesn't, because I could definitely see them blowing everything up after JOC's run down there after Jason Christ. So I think whoever you pick for it, you got to be patient and give them a little bit of time, even if it's rough.
Michael Ruiz asked if Orlando was trying to get any better. He said that's not a knock or a joke. It's a serious question. John, what about you? What is the New Year's resolution for Orlando?
Suck less.
But how?
The way that I've always thought about a team that was porous, solidify the back and go forward. Because last time I checked, if both teams don't score, you still get out of there with a point. Work on your defense first and get folks in there who will not give up 74 goals in a season and give you a goal difference of minus 31. Defense first, then worry about the rest of it. So that to me would be the best thing that I could think of. I don't know how much trust I have in the philosophy of JOC, but I would just say, give me a solid back line and someone solid in net. Obviously, they're going to have to find those individuals, but just solid defense and then work going forward.
It's Orlando's such a weird thing at this point. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the step forward is for them. And I said this when we left Orlando in August. I said they needed to be patient with James O'Connor and stick with him and keep moving forward with it. He didn't really give a lot of reasons to continue to believe in him as the year went on. It kept getting worse. He looked
stunned most of the time.
Yeah, it kept getting worse. But I think the problems are bigger than him right now. And Luis Muzzi coming in as the new GM is a good move. This is a guy who was Fernando Clavijo's right-hand man with Traffic Sports and then with FC Dallas. He knows the league, and I think that's something that Orlando struggled with before, and honestly I think struggled with O'Connor. I think having somebody in there who knows the league, knows the talent level of the league, knows what this team needs to be competitive, I think they have to be patient with him. That's the most important thing about being patient right now. Now, looking forward with O'Connor, I don't know if he's the right guy.
No.
I thought before you had to be patient with him, and now I don't know if he's the right guy, but I think you have other things to figure out first. So right now, it doesn't matter who's in charge on the touchline. This roster is not good enough to compete. It's flat out not. When you look at goalkeepers, you're probably going in with Greg Ranjit Singh. coming in as the new starter from Louisville City, a guy O'Connor knows, but also a guy who's never been in Major League Soccer before. You're looking at a back line. 3 center backs is all you have in Shane O'Neill, Lamine Sané, Carlos Asquez, who's probably better served to be in the midfield. 3 outside backs is all you have in R.J. Allen, Kyle Smith, another USL player making the move up, and Joao Moutinho, who struggled with LAFC in his rookie year. You have 6 defenders, period. Like, I'm not saying like 6 defenders who can play at this level. I'm saying 6 defenders, period. That's what you have. And at this stage, you're going to have to go out into the marketplace and find some center backs and some outside backs. And I don't know what you're going to find. So Muzzy's got, his work cut out for him defensively, because if you're trying to shore up that end, you don't have anything to work with. You've got nothing. Up top, you've got Dom Dwyer. You need to get him service. Behind him, you've got Stefano Pino. You've got Tesho Akindele, who can play out wide. You've got Chris Mueller, who can play out wide or play centrally. You've got some decent things to work with up top. Midfield, in the holding midfield, Uri Russell should be healthy. That's a player you can build around as a 6. You pair him up with some combination of Christian Higuita, Will Johnson, Dylan Powers. Okay, it's decent. Sasha Kljestan, can he get back to where he was before? You have to find out. You don't have an option here to wait and see. I mean, you just got to see what you have. You got to see if Kljestan can be that guy again. If he can't, then you move on at the end of the year, or you replace him as the year goes on. And I don't know if you can bench him and attitude-wise it's going to be worth it, or if you're going to have to find a place to move him to. I don't know. You got to get more out of Josue Colman. You got to see if you have anything in Pierre Da Silva and Cam Lindley, 2 young players who just haven't had an opportunity. There are so many holes and so many issues with this roster that it could be overwhelming for Muzzy, and he's just going to have time. I think the patience at this point is even beyond O'Connor. It's the GM. You've got to let him add. I mean, realistically, you've got to let him add 2 starting level outside backs and a starting level center back. Not exactly easy to do in, 2 months. You've got to take a leap of faith that Ranjit Singh is a MLS goalkeeper, because you don't really have any other options. You've got to take a leap of faith that Sasha Kljestan can get back to where he was, because you're kind of married to him at this point. And you've got to find a way to feed Dom Dwyer and get him goals. So there are so many issues with Orlando right now. I would be really tempted to say that Orlando is going to be the worst team in the league in 2019, just because it's bleak at the moment. We'll see what the transfer window brings. We'll see what the Yoshi Otun money brings in, but it's a mess. And it could be James O'Connor or Pep Guardiola there right now, and it's not going to make a difference. You've got to increase the talent level when you're Orlando, and you've got to. My New Year's resolution started with a question: is there a plan? And if there's not, the New Year's resolution should be to create one. And that's going to be on Luis Muzzy. So we'll see if he's ready to do it and if he knows what he's gotten himself into, because he's got a lot of work in front of him. We're going to take our final break of hour number 1, and we'll be back to wrap up the first hour after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Short segment to finish up hour number one. We could have kept going for another 2 hours on Orlando and still wouldn't have solved anything. I think it's the worst roster going into 2019 as it currently stands right now. Colorado is one that is not exactly a roster brimming with talent, but it feels like maybe they're learning some things after year one of Anthony Hudson. Jarrett, what's your New Year's resolution for the Colorado Rapids?
He's thinking.
He doesn't have one. John, what's your New Year's resolution for the Rapids?
How about score, dog? 36 goals last year in 34 matches. Find folks who can put the ball in the back of the net. Underlined, exclamated, and italicized. Oh, and work on your defense, too.
That's pretty much everything. That's both sides. So, yeah, it's not good. For me, it's trust in the young talent that you've brought in since Anthony Hudson arrived. Trust in Kellen Acosta. Trust in Diego Rubio, especially. Rubio is a guy who could be that goal scorer that they need, and he's the type of forward to me that can make other players better around him. I don't think Dominic Baggi was that guy. I don't think they had that guy in their team last year. I think Rubio is a guy who can combine and bring other players into the game. And that's what Colorado needs. So Acosta, Rubio, more young talent, let them play and let them figure it out. I think this team has more talent than some of the teams around them in the table. And I think they have young talent coming through. Their academy is better and it's starting to produce some talent. I think they could turn the corner. So you made the decision to stick with Anthony Hudson. Now you really need to show that, look, we're not expecting you to win MLS Cup in 2019, but we are expecting improvement. And for me, that improvement is quality of play as opposed to just flat-out results. So we'll see how the Rapids look in 2019. We'll move through the rest of the table in hour number 2. New Year's resolutions for Major League Soccer. More to come after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2 on the New Year's Eve edition of Soccer Down Here. Final show 2018. We're giving you our New Year's resolutions for Major League Soccer and all of its clubs and anything else that might pop up as well. You guys are contributing as well on Twitter at Soccer Down Here, and we'll get back to some of your feedback as we go. But let's move on in the table to the Chicago Fire and what their New Year's resolution should be for 2019. John, what do you think?
Well, my New Year's resolution is already null and void. So start your transition to get younger.
What was your New Year's resolution?
Not re-sign Veljko Paunovic and Nelson Rodriguez.
Has the Paunovic one been announced yet?
Efforting.
I don't think it doesn't. I mean, I don't think it has, but at this point, I don't think you're going to move on. So it's probably just down to semantics. Okay, well, let's. If that was your New Year's resolution, and they're going to go with what they've got, what would your new New Year's resolution be for the Fire?
Just start your transition to get younger, because last time I checked, Bastian Schweinsteiger playing every position on the pitch, and just no. Bring in young talent, work your transition to make sure that you can turn the page now as opposed to after a player like a Schweinsteiger is already out the door. Keep your younger players, make sure that Jordi Mihailovic stays healthy, get everything working in a younger vein to transition away from the older talent.
They're not that old, John. I think Bastian Schweinsteiger, distracts us from that. But you're talking about 3 players over the age of 30. That's it. Schweinsteiger, McCarty, and Nikolic. And McCarty's 31 and Nikolic is 31. And I wouldn't necessarily count them as playing as older players. So I don't know. That's the thing about the Fire, and that's what's hard about it, is I don't know what their playing identity is. I think the fact that we look at them and think old, they're not telling their story very effectively. Jarrett, what do you think about the Fire? What would your New Year's resolution be?
Start doing something other than leading on Bastian Schweinsteiger, who is eventually going to start showing his age more and more and more. So it's great that Bastian Schweinsteiger can play 12 positions on a field that only has 11, really, at a time. It's great. But you need to have an answer beyond that, because eventually that's going to stop working or he's going to stop playing. And, I mean, you got to have some answers aside from that, we're just going to get the ball to Bastian Schweinsteiger and ask him to do things for us.
Yeah, and that's why the Fire feel old. It's not so much that they have a very old roster. It's that the focal point of the roster, the guy that you put in every position on the field because you don't have other talent there, is a 34-year-old Bastian Schweinsteiger. So for me, I'll go a step further because I think the problems in Chicago are so much deeper than this roster and this coaching staff. It's the relationship with the city and the supporters. They have to fix this. They have to fix this, or you can do whatever you want and it's not going to matter. They're at a point where just putting a good product on the field doesn't fix what the Chicago Fire are lacking at this point, because I don't think the supporters are coming back after the way they've been treated and the way that this team is looked at in the local media. It's so bad. They have to fix that. That's the number one thing here. I think the roster, the talent, they brought in Marcelo, center back from Brazil. That helps. You lost Michael Deleu to a Dutch First Division team, FC Emmen. Not a fan of that. You've got Jordi Mihailovic that you need to give him the keys and let him be the guy. You need to trust in Mo Adams more. I thought Mo Adams was playing well early last season, and then for whatever reason they turned away from him. Grant Lillard, young homegrown player. You have young talent, and I think you can work through that and give them a bigger piece of what the team is on the field. That part's okay. I would try to get Matt Polster back and whatever it takes there. But for me, none of it matters if you don't rebuild the relationship between the Chicago Fire Soccer Club and the supporters and fans of Chicago. Because I don't want to see more situations like that Chicago-Orlando nationally televised game where John Strong and Stuart Holden have to talk about the lack of noise and atmosphere and people in the stands and all of the off-the-field stuff. You can't have the off-the-field nonsense like this overshadow the product on the field. It's the Chicago Fire Soccer Club, and the number one thing I think of when I think of this club right now is the issues with the supporters and just the lack of interest in the city as a whole. And I think the issues with the supporters have a big part of that. Because as you've seen here, when you have an engaged supporters group and an engaged set of fans of your club, that's the best marketing you could ever have. Because they're going to be out there talking to people. They're going to be out there asking for more coverage. They're going to be out there showing strength in numbers. Right now, Chicago doesn't have that at all. And right now, Chicago, it feels more like they're actively at war with their supporters than giving them something to support. That's a problem. That has to be fixed.
But it's not Michael Deleu's problem anymore.
Nope. He's in the Netherlands now. He doesn't have to worry about this. And that's a big loss for me. I think Deleu is one of the more underrated players in the league and would have been a big help for Chicago. This is an interesting one in our New Year's resolution list because this is a team that is far better than where they finished. Toronto FC. Jarrett, what is your New Year's resolution for the Reds?
All in, baby.
All in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go all in.
Yep.
We've discussed this for the last few days about, that they've got the money to spend. We've seen the Toronto FC 2, the USL team. So, not great.
Yeah, Toronto's in a very interesting situation as you go into a year with your three cornerstones of this club on the field, and Giovinco, Bradley, and Altidore, all in the final season of their contract. I'm not one who in MLS really goes by you have a window and you have to maximize your opportunities in that window, but man, this feels like a window is about to close. Because even if you somehow re-sign all three of them, they're not going to be the same as they were. They probably aren't going to be the same in 2019 as they were in 2017. Just 2 more years of age. So this kind of does feel like it. And it doesn't mean that Toronto would then be an afterthought. It just means that they would have to rebuild. And Toronto has the money to rebuild quickly. I mean, if those three guys come off your books and you're signing 3 new designated players, yeah, you're going to have to pony up some transfer fees if you would go that route, or if you're looking for guys who are available on freeze, you're going that route. But you're going to have money to spend. That's not an issue. Toronto is one of the better supported teams financially in this league. But for this group, it does kind of feel like it's time to go all in, and if you go get another 30 or 32 or 33-year-old player who can help you win in 2019, you go do it. You get them on a 1-year deal, and you let the chips fall. I mean, John, anything else on Toronto in terms of resolutions?
Find the best physical therapy trainers on the planet to keep everybody healthy for the all-in.
Yeah, pray to the injury gods would be my resolution.
Yes.
Whatever offerings you feel like you need to make as you go into 2019, whatever things that you think might bring you good luck, if you are in the Toronto front office, you better wear all of your Toronto gear and do everything possible to bring yourself good luck going into 2019, because you had awful luck in 18, and another year on these guys. This feels like a huge opportunity that one key injury could derail it. So we'll keep an eye on Toronto. I think they're going to be pushing for the top of the Eastern Conference. I do. I think they're going to be right now, before we get into big acquisitions in the transfer window, I think Toronto could be Atlanta's challenger in the Eastern Conference. I do. So we'll see if the Reds can stay healthy. Let's move on to the Minnesota United, the Loons.
Oh.
John, what's your New Year's resolution for the Loons other than sighing uncomfortably, actually?
Yeah, that was more of a harumph with Minnesota United. God, do better on the road, and B, do better defensively. Good Lord. Find folks who will not let the ball go into the net. 71 goals allowed. Are you serious? And 1 goal on the road? Do better, please.
Jarrett, what about you? For the Loons, what's your resolution?
Put up or shut up for Manny Lagos. It's going into year 3. I know you told us that it was going to be a slow process, that you didn't intend to compete day 1. I get it. Darwin Quintero was fun. I think it was Jeff Reuter posted the numbers that once you got rid of Christian Ramirez, Darwin Quintero's numbers just were not the same. Like, they played off of each other well. But if you're Manny Lagos and you've got some grand plan, year 3 is I don't need to see you make the playoffs, but I need you to be better. Otherwise, I'm going to have some serious questions and side eyes about what this organization is and what direction it's going.
For me, when it comes to Minnesota, who are you? How do you play?
Yeah.
That's what I don't really know. I don't know if they're a 3-back team. I don't know if they're a 4-back team. You went put up or shut up for Manny Lagos. I'm going to go put up or shut up for Adrian Heath. I think you have to make a decision this year, and you might be forced with making that decision in the middle of the year. Is he your guy? Is he your guy for the long haul? Has he had the talent to work with going in? I don't think so. I think this year, this is going to be the best roster that he's had to work with. I don't know if it's good enough yet, because I do think there are some questions about some of the decisions Lagos has made. But this is the best he's had to work with, and he's got to get more out of it. Kevin Molino should be back. That's a big help. That's a big get. You almost forget about Molino because he only played in 2 games last year. You get Molino back. You get a full year of Darwin Quintero. Is Angelo Rodriguez the guy? Are these holding midfielders from Scandinavia, are they the guys? Can Miguel Ibarra step up and be what people have expected him to be for quite a while? Can they get anything defensively? For Minnesota, to me, it comes down to, is Adrian Heath the right guy to be in charge of this team? Is Manny Lagos the right guy to be in charge of the front office from the soccer perspective? Those are the tough decisions that Minnesota ownership has to make. And now you're in your own building. There are no more excuses. Mid-season, you might have some tough decisions to make. And that's where it comes down to for me. I think for Adrian Heath, his resolution has to be to start fast. They have to get out of the gates fast, or you're potentially at risk of losing your job. I feel like that's where it gets to for Minnesota, because how long do you give them at this point? You know, this is year 3. You're in your own stadium. You're not paying rent anywhere else. Your revenues should be changing dramatically. You have spent money on the roster. This is put up or shut up time for Manny Lagos and for Adrian Heath. Next up, Houston, the Dynamo, the U.S. Open Cup champions, going into CONCACAF Champions League. Jarrett, Houston Dynamo, what are your New Year's resolutions?
Oh, find a way to be better on the road. I mean,
yeah.
The last 2 seasons, you've actually ended with big road games. You won in Portland in the playoffs 2 years ago against all odds. And then you went in and you assisted the LA Galaxy with self-asphyxiation. So you've had some really interesting watershed moments on the road, but be better across the board on the road, because at home, this is a playoff team. Remember, went to Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Be better on the road and take advantage of the talent that you have there right now, because this team is poorly supported. They should be better supported because they're a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun players. And, you know, I would like to see them lean hard into CONCACAF Champions League.
John, what about you? Houston Dynamo resolutions.
Yeah, do better on the road was one that I had. And then B, make sure that you have the depth in place that when you lose a key player, that your offense doesn't drop off a cliff.
Yeah, that's tough with the budget you're talking about with the Dynamo, but I'm with you. You want to try to get too deep everywhere on your depth chart. For me, it's twofold with the Dynamo, and it is more big picture. Keep investing in the academy and give it time to grow. Finally, the Dynamo seem to realize that they have an academy and that, you know, Houston has a lot of talent in it, and maybe you should actually pay attention to that. They went out and they got San Jose's academy director, Paul Holliker, who's a great player in this league in the early days. Bring him over. He's doing well. He's starting to change the narrative of what the academy is for the Dynamo. They're doing some projects with Tom Byer, a guy that I've always had a ton of respect for in terms of younger kids and developing technical skill at a very young age. So they're investing on that side. That's good. That's going to pay off with talent. It's going to pay off on that depth chart down the road, not this year, but down the road, and it's going to give you a base to work with. The other thing it's going to do, too, if it's done correctly, is it's going to build that relationship between the Houston Dynamo and the city of Houston, because I don't understand what has happened from 2006 when the Dynamo came to town, when they were at Robertson Stadium on the campus of the University of Houston, to now when they're in a beautiful stadium that is rarely full. They have to build that relationship between the club and the city and the soccer fans of the city. The academy work will help, but whatever it takes beyond that to take it to the next level, they have to do it. Some of it is going to be down to the product on the field. And I think that's a bigger part in Houston than it is in some other cities that we've talked about in this area. The Owen Coyle years, I think they're still kind of bouncing back from. I think that really killed the fan base. Okay, now you have a guy in Wilmer Cabrera who I think it puts a good product on the field. You have young, exciting players. Lean into that. Lean into a guy like Glenn Davis, friend of the show, who is out there on local radio, putting his own resources into things to talk about this team. You have things in Houston that it feels like they just haven't, all the dots have not been connected yet. And for the Dynamo to be what they were in the mid-2000s when they arrived on the scene, to be one of the big teams in this league again, and I think they absolutely have that potential, they have to do these things first. Build the academy, build the relationship with the city, continue to make the product on the field better, And then when it's time, and it might be time this summer, it might be time next winter, it might be time next year. When it's time to go make that blockbuster signing, if you do all these other things, you'll be able to take full advantage of it. And that blockbuster signing, to me, it's still Chicharito. When it's time to bring Chicharito back from Europe, the Houston Dynamo should be in that conversation. And if they're not, they're completely missing out on the opportunity. So we'll see what happens with the Dynamo. But I think they're one of these teams that we talk about in the league that can definitely be bigger than they are. And that's not just on the field. That's as a club in their city. The Dynamo don't feel like they're as big as they should be. And I hope they can continue to take the right steps in that direction. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll get into the New England Revolution after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
Living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, New Year's Eve edition. Getting you ready for 2019 with New Year's resolutions for all of the clubs in Major League Soccer. We're up to the New England Revolution. Jarrett, what are your thoughts on the Revs and what resolutions should they be making?
Stay the course right now. I still am not 100% convinced that it's going to work, but, we'll see. Stay the course and see where this goes this year.
What about you, John?
Do better on the road. 2-9-6 last year, and I'm still, the conversation that we had, where Brad Friedel was sitting there and trying to pit players against each other, ditch the old school mentality and do better on the road.
For the Revs, I'm more along the lines of Jarrett here. I think they are on the right path. I'm going to give Friedel the benefit of the doubt on that whole conversation. I don't think it came out in a good way, but I do get at least a little bit of where he's coming from here. You want that competition within the squad for places. You don't want to see guys complacent and maybe something happened that we don't know about that kind of set this off. I don't know. I think you've got to continue along the path that you've created now. You've got to give Friedel the room to work. You've got to give him more talent to work with. This was a team that was pretty limited in 2018. I think they have to get better defensively more than anything. Claude Dielna not being back helps. making some moves, bringing in some pieces already is a good thing. Building that training facility is a massive thing. That will be a big help to that club. I think they're heading in the right direction. I think New England's a playoff team in 2019. I really do. Vancouver is a team that has made some changes and made a change at the top. John, the Whitecaps, what's your resolution for them?
Let Marc Dos Santos do his thing, because he's been a winner in previous stops. Trust. I'm going to be like the Sixers here. Trust the process. Let Dos Santos do his thing.
What about you, Jarrett?
Embrace whatever overhaul you're making, and it might be a rough road, but you might have to see this out this year. This might be kind of tricky, because I think it's going to be a different style than what you've seen from the Whitecaps in the last 2 seasons. But this year might have some rough moments in the middle of that chain. So I think you just got to be patient with it.
Yeah, you've just got to let it play out now in Vancouver. You finally made the change from Carl Robinson that I feel like was maybe a year or two too late. But you get a guy in Marc Dos Santos that a lot of people really were high on. So let him do his thing. Let him work. If you take a step back this year because of the changes, because of Alphonso Davies being gone, don't panic. I think you have to let Dos Santos create a new identity for who the Whitecaps are. LA Galaxy. This is a tricky one. This is an interesting one. Jarrett, your New Year's resolutions for the LA Galaxy.
Man.
Find a way to keep 4 DPs.
Yeah. See if the legal bin rules for you again, like they back in the day. See if this Lawton rule put into effect. I don't really know what your New Year's resolution is for them. Spend smarter, please, because I believe you led the league in spending on the back line last year, and it was a very porous back line. So just be better in terms of your spending away from your DPs, and just be smart.
John, what about you?
Get your DP situation squared away and be better defensively. Take that money and work on your defense. 64 goals allowed last year.
I'm going to go bigger picture for the Galaxy. They are one of the OGs in this league in terms of quality. You know, it's the Galaxy, it's DC United. Those were the two that started things off and showing the quality that this league could have. You are one of those teams with the Galaxy. Nobody can touch you in terms of MLS Cups, in terms of that long-term success. Act like it. If that is your identity going forward, and that's all that I can really, pin it on at this point, because LAFC's come in and grabbed the buzz in Los Angeles. You haven't really tried to differentiate yourselves. You didn't go the Red Bulls route of doubling down on youth and not trying to get into spending wars. You're spending money. Okay. What you have that nobody else has, and especially what the team across town doesn't have, is you got trophies and you got history, and you are that team. Be that team. Act like it. Be that. I don't know. It's not quite the Darth Vader kind of thing. I don't think you need to play the Imperial March as the team's coming out, but kind of embrace that side of it for me. I feel like the Galaxy at times, the perception they put out there is a little too insider, a little too, we're funnier and smarter than you, and we're going to have all kinds of funny jokes on social media. You've got history to where that shouldn't be your first play. It should be, nobody in this league had a guy like Robbie Keane. It should be, that the MVP trophy, it's named after the guy who won most of those when he was here, Landon Donovan. That David Beckham guy, he was here too. You want to go
Embrace
further back?
Your history.
Oh, yeah, Jorge Campos. Luis Hernandez, Carlos Hermosillo. So many legends of the game, whether they're United States, Kobe Jones, whether they are Mexico, whether they are around the world, wore that Galaxy shirt. Be that team. Be that team that can speak to things that nobody else in this league really can. Don't be the hipster team. Be the OG. Be that. And I think the Galaxy would be, yeah, exactly. Be the Yankees. Be that team. I think that would really serve them well going forward. Real Salt Lake, very different type of identity mentality. RSL, what are your New Year's resolutions, Jarrett?
Find some consistency and figure out who to keep and who to cut bait on this year, preferably early in the season. But it's a team that, last year they were really fun at times, and other times they were not really fun at all. And you got a lot of really talented young players, and who's going to pan out, who's not. I think you need to start finding answers this year and start. If a guy ain't going to be the guy, you need to start making plans to move on. But you cannot eternally be that team that, oh man, next year they could put it together and it could be really impressive. Well, this needs to be that year. You don't want to be stuck in that phase forever.
What about you, John? RSL?
For me, it's just more consistency. I mean, you're great at Rio Tinto, but you suck away from home. I mean, just close that margin up a little more and continue to embrace the young talent that you have. And maybe you can put the ball in the back of the net a little more. But really, for me, it's just consistency overall.
If you get Herman Cano, who you're trying to bring in from Colombia, you're going to have somebody who can put the ball in the back of the net. So you might have that problem solved. I'm usually not one to say, like, okay, you're going to have a manager for a long period of time and you want to work through that. Real Salt Lake is a special situation with Mike Petke. I would ride that wave as long as he wants to be there. I really would. And you're going to have some inconsistency because of that, because Petke runs hot and cold. You're going to have a team that runs hot and cold. I'll take that trade-off. In that market with who RSL is, I'll take that trade-off. I think you basically sit down with Petke and say, what do you want the next 5 years to be? What do you want the next 10 years to be? We want you here. We want you to be the face of this club. We want you to be that rare unicorn that's out there that does stay for a long period of time and is the face of the club. I think RSL is going to bring in a lot of young talent. They're going to continue to develop players. They've done a great job of that in a market that you would not have expected to be one of the leaders in terms of academy development. RSL's done it. You've got those roots down. You've got that in place. Let Petke be the guy to lead it. And if you can sign him to a long-term deal and just commit your future to him and keep riding that wave of Mike Petke, I would do it. I absolutely would. I think that would be the best thing for RSL going forward. Let's finish the segment with Philadelphia. Jarrett, the Union, what are your New Year's resolutions?
Get a striker. Like a real striker consistently. One that Jonathan Tannenwald isn't going to beat with a grandfather clock.
I don't know if Tannenwald can swing a grandfather clock. I'd kind of like to see it.
Oh, yeah.
I think he would at TJ Sapong if he could.
Possibly.
Yeah, get a striker and see if you can extract anything that resembles value from David Accam.
John, what about you?
Yeah, for me it was scoring and give Jim Curtin some help financially to bring folks in. I mean, we've seen what Curtin can do with what he's been given. Let him have the wallet for a little bit, because Philly's right there, and I think that they can climb up a spot or two in the East if Jim Curtin gets a little help to bring in talent in addition to all of the youth that's already there.
I don't know if that wallet has anything in it. So I don't
you said resolutions.
Yeah, but resolutions are usually based in reality. I don't know if they have money to spend. So That's a tough one. You're in a weird situation with Ernst Tanner taking over. You've given Curtin a 1-year deal, basically a show and prove, and there's questions about who's going to score the goals for this team. The bigger question for me is who's going to create the chances for somebody to score the goals, because it doesn't look like Borek Dochkal's coming back. I don't think you're going to be able to navigate that scenario with his Chinese club, and it sounds like he wants to go back to Europe anyway. He had 17 assists in 2018. Who's going to replace that? I don't know. And it feels like you're going into a year for me that the Union are going to take a step back because you don't have a consistent goal scorer, you don't have a consistent chance creator, and Jim Curtin's in his last year and has no job security. I feel like this is the year where the Union take a step back. Ernst Tanner basically says, well, you didn't get it done, we're moving on, and you see a new Philadelphia Union in 2020, and Tanner hires who he wants to hire. I don't know if he's really committed to Jim Curtin. I feel like he was almost boxed into having to continue with Curtin, but he's not going to give him the talent for Curtin to be successful. So I look at it as 2019 could be a wasted year for the Philadelphia Union. You're going to get young guys minutes. I mean, it's not wasted in that regard, but is it building for anything towards the future? I think it's building for a new future in 2020. That's what worries me about the Union. I think Jim Curtin's a good manager in this league. I don't know if he is a top-flight manager in this league, but I think he's a good one. But I don't think he's going to be in Philadelphia in 2020. I don't think he's going to have enough to work with to get the right year to earn another contract. Let's take a break. Let's come back. We'll get into the upper echelon of the league and New Year's resolutions for the rest of Major League Soccer. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, New Year's Eve edition. We're going through the New Year's resolutions for every team in MLS. If you guys have any you want to share with us, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll close out the show with your New Year's resolutions, whether it's Atlanta United, whether it's other teams in Major League Soccer, just soccer as a whole, whatever you want to share with us, share it with us in your last chance in 2018 to do so. We've lost Jarrett Smith. He is off on a family outing celebrating the new year. So happy New Year, Jarrett and Ivy and Katie and the fam. So let's move forward with the Columbus Crew. who will be hanging around in Central Ohio. What is your New Year's resolution for the crew?
For the Haslams to reach out to the casual fan, to attract them to their version of Columbus Crew SC. We know that the supporters groups and the hardcore fans are going to be there, but looking at the stands at Mopfre last season, it was disappointing and it was sad. So I think that what you have to do is you have to win back the community on the whole and make those outreach efforts to fill the stands as you get ready to build the new stadium and everything else that's going to happen with the Mopfre property in a couple of years' time.
I'll take it a step back from that. I think the new ownership has to make the crew theirs.
True.
Because everything related to the pre-court version of the crew is going to be looked at in a bad light right now. Look, the logo, the change to the logo, I've seen people say go back to the original logo. Don't do that. Don't do that, please. Don't bring the Village people back. I'm not a fan of the construction workers on the logo. But the ridiculous branding of and we've broken the branding rules nonstop here about calling them the crew because you're supposed to call them Crew SC. Stop that. Just stop that nonsense. It's not Crew SC. You should be able to call them the crew. It's the Columbus Crew.
It wasn't Save the Crew SC.
No, because nobody wanted to say that because it's dumb, because nobody speaks that way. Like, drop that stuff. Put out there what your Columbus Crew is. Now that you are going to be in charge and you're making these big decisions, Caleb Porter will be part of that. Caleb Porter will be a big part in defining what the new Columbus Crew is on the field. And that's a good thing. I think he can do that, and I think you'll have a team that you can be proud of on the field. The off the field side, I think you have to show that you're moving forward. You are planning routes. You are redefining who the Columbus Crew are. And one thing about the crew that is a little interesting, you have the Nordecke, you have the hardcore supporters in Columbus. You need more casual fans. You need more people to come out who are not part of that group. And you need to find the right balance for that group and who you are as a club. They've been one that I think it's kind of struggled with that balance. You don't want your hardcore supporters to turn people away from coming to your games. And Columbus has walked that line at times. I hope that new ownership group coming from, yes, from an NFL perspective, yes, I think Arthur Blank gets an assist here because it sounds like he reached out to Haslam and the Browns ownership and said, you know what, this would be a smart move for you. It's been paid off really well for me. So I hope that all of the lessons that you've seen from Atlanta can pay off there. Because the crew are, in my opinion, are positioned really well to be a massive deal in Columbus and in the surrounding area because, it's the Blue Jackets and it's Ohio State football. That's it. You're not worried about crossing over with Ohio State football fans. That's not as big of a deal. You're going to have to fight them for coverage, sure. But on the fan side of it, you can be the biggest thing in town. I really think that's the case. And you just have to open yourself up to be able to do that. Take that step beyond just hardcore soccer fans. And I think the crew, it could really pay off for them.
And I want to see that because of everything that those fans have been through. They deserved a lot better over the last couple of years with the way that Anthony Precourt decided to treat them. And I hope that the Haslam family will invest, and I mean that more than just financially, I mean emotionally and physically, that they invest in the future of the crew.
Yeah, I think now's the time, and I hope the momentum that that the Save the Crew movement has built up, I hope it doesn't just fizzle out because the team is saved. I hope what the supporters who put themselves out there as ambassadors and advocates for this club and for the game and that community can now flip it to growing the Crew and going out there and putting themselves out there to grow the club, not just solidify the club, but grow the club. And that's the next step. You know, we've talked about it here in Atlanta a lot, where you have to be willing to grow the fan base and put in that time, and it does take time. And I hope that this group can do that. I'm excited about the potential of what the Crew can be, and I hope it lives up to it. DC United. New Year's resolutions for DC, John.
Stay the course, get Acosta and Assad figured out, because I want to see a full season of Wayne Rooney at DCU.
Yeah, I want to see a full season of Rooney, Acosta, Assad, and now it sounds like Lucas Rodriguez. That's big. If they don't get Assad worked out, you do have Zoltan Stieber, you do have Paul Areola, who could be a right back, could be a right winger. You kind of have to figure out what his long term is. For me, it's the back line. I think you have to get Bill Hamid some help. You know, you have Russell Canals, you have a lot of attacking talent. You got Bill Hamid back. You got to get a better back line in front of him. And that's the key for DC. They have to commit to a big signing defensively, I think, to get the best out of them. Let's take our final break. We'll come back. We'll get into the top, what are we looking at? Top eight MLS.
Yeah.
And we'll start with Portland, who fell in MLS Cup final. We'll see what's next for them and the rest of the league, and we'll get into your New Year's resolutions as well. Share them with us on Twitter @SoccerDownHere. Final break now, and we'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
Living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment. Final New Year's resolutions for Major League Soccer teams going into 2019. Jason Longshore, John Nelson finishing up the year of 2018 on Soccer Down Here. And let's get into the resolution, starting with the Timbers. What is your New Year's resolution for Portland?
Well, for Portland, you know, now that you're going to have a full season of Giovanni Savarese, I know there was the adjustment coming out of the blocks, a full season of his philosophy. For me, it's solidify competition, bring in some depth pieces, especially in the middle, because some folks aren't getting any younger, and just keep doing what you're doing. Maybe get better on the road a little bit. You were 4-8-5, but Portland can be right up there at the top of the West again by the end of the 2019 season for me.
I think they will be. They've got the backloaded home schedule with the work at Providence Park. So, I mean, initially it's be patient. Don't freak out if your first 12 games are a struggle, because you're probably going to play that many on the road to start. Bigger picture, what's your plan for life after Diego Valeri, Sebastian Blanco, Diego Chara? What is your plan when those three are gone? Because you have to start thinking about that now. Valeri is so important to this team. If he was to leave tomorrow, what happens? I think it's a huge step back. Blanco has been linked to moves in South America. He might take one of these at one point in the very near future. What happens if he goes? And Chara, we know how important Diego Chara is to this team. They're far less successful with Diego Chara out of the lineup. So what's next? What's the plan? Academy-wise, they've done a really poor job of developing talent, and that's something that has to improve for this group going forward, because you kind of caught lightning in a bottle with Valeri and Chara and Blanco. You'd like to be in a position where you have internal depth, and they're not there right now, so we'll have to wait and see. New York City FC. What is your resolution for the Pigeons of New York?
For NYCFC, figure out if Domi Torrent is your guy. For me, it started out, it's just, I had more questions the longer Torrent was there as coach on the touchline at the end of the year. And figure out your philosophy under it. And if you got to replace David Villa, obviously. Number one, exclamate. How are you going to replace that kind of impact on the pitch, in the community, in the media, getting noticed, all that kind of stuff. But Villa and Domi Torrent, for me, figure it out.
You're stuck if you're New York City right now, because what you should be doing, and the reason why you hired Domi Torrent, was to do what Pep Guardiola did at Manchester City and take the blueprint now that the City Football Group as a whole has wanted since they took over. They've been after Pep Guardiola from day one. I mean, they hired friends of his from Barcelona to bring him into the organization. They lost out when he went to Bayern. They said, we're still going to wait. We're going to get him eventually, and they did. They want to be able to have that identity across all of their properties. Red Bull has it. City Football Group does not. So you bring in Domi Torrent, Pep's right-hand man, you would think that that's what's happening here. It's, okay, we're going to take what Patrick Vieira did. Now you're bringing in the guy who's worked with Pep his whole career. You're going to just completely engross yourself in what this team is supposed to be on the field and from a soccer perspective. All right, so if you're going to do that, that takes time. You got to have patience. Yeah, you can't have patience when your attendance is dropping because you're playing at a baseball stadium. It's hard to develop that identity when you're not playing on an ideal field to do so. And now you've lost the face of the team in David Villa. So you're in this weird spot between you need to have patience and you can't have patience. You got to pick one. And that's the number one thing for New York City FC is you have to pick what you're going to be right now. Are you going to take a step back to let Domi Torrent be the guy and just imbue this club with what they want it to be in the long term? Or do you feel like that you can't do that because you have to bring people into the stands? You have to go get a name. You have to do these things to put yourself in a position to be able to get attention and eventually build a stadium in New York. Can you do both at the same time? I don't know if you can. And I think New York City has to make that decision. Are we going to build for the long haul, or are we going to build for the short term to do whatever it takes that might help get a stadium done? They have to pick one, and they have to stick with it. And that might mean that you take a big step back on the field in 2019, and you have to be willing to take that and ride it out. You've got the money. You're not going to go out of business if your attendance drops. You can absolutely eat the loss, but you got to make that decision, and you got to stick with it. And that's the biggest question for New York City. This is a pivotal year for the Pigeons. Absolute pivotal year for New York City, and we'll see which direction they go. Dallas has made an interesting move with Oscar Pereja leaving, Luchi Gonzalez coming in, talking about really doubling down on young talent, but also going out and spending $5 million on Brian Acosta, Honduran international from Tenerife, second division in Spain. What's your resolution for Dallas as they try to figure out who they are and what they are going forward?
Patience. You know, you've brought Lucci in, and he has already said, and he's locked in. Quote, and this was an appearance on my Fox Dallas, Fox 4. Clear model and philosophy that we want to develop stars, not necessarily purchase or buy them. We feel that's about our players, our people, our staff. That's what we're doing, and we feel at the same time we can compete for championships. I'm excited to continue to find that balance and do so. I don't think that's going to be immediate. And also, if you could figure out what continually has late season collapses, if you could figure out how to fix that and bottle it and sell it, I think that you'd make a fortune. But really, it's patience with the new administration for me, and just don't get bent out of shape if things start poorly.
Yeah, I don't even think the latter part of the late season collapses matters at this point. The patience is the key. You've got to have patience in Luchi Gonzalez because he's going to make mistakes. This is his first time managing at the professional level. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to do some things that you're like, what is he doing? You got to roll with it. You got to have patience in the young talent. Pablo Aranguiz, Paxton Pomacall, I think those are the two guys who could really take this team to another level in terms of creating chances and being a fun team to watch. They're going to make mistakes too. You got to roll with it. And you're in a position in Dallas where Hunt family's not going anywhere. You know, what you have at Toyota Stadium, you're not going anywhere. You're good. You've now brought the National Soccer Hall of Fame in. You need to grow the fan base, yes. You need to increase the professionalism of the club and its perception, absolutely. But the number one thing for them in 2019 is just that patience on the field, because you have doubled down on what you started with Oscar Pereja in terms of creating an academy and wanting to have that goal of eventually having a team that is all homegrown players on the field at the same time. I think you can do that. I really do. But now it's continuing to have that patience to see it out, and having maybe even more patience in a new manager and young talent that you're going to make mistakes and your results might not be what they were in 2018 and definitely not what they were in 2016. But long-term play, you do have that identity and you do have that vision, and you just got to trust it. LAFC is in a different situation. Year 2 for LAFC. What's your resolution for them, John?
You've created a very exciting brand of soccer, especially at home. Bank of California, it can be a very fun place to watch LAFC play, but you're in the middle of the pack defensively when it comes to goals allowed. Shore up your back and don't have so many 5-3, 4-3 shootouts where it could go either way for you. And keep an eye on your fans and make sure they don't throw things. You're better than that.
Yeah, definitely cultivate the fan culture and the culture around the team that you want. And don't let it get out of control and define the club. You've got to work to cultivate it. That's part of it. I think that can be managed. I think that can be okay. For me, don't be so stubborn. Like, Bob Bradley came in, and I think he had a point to prove, and he did. Bob Bradley is one of the best managers the United States has ever produced. I think it's Bob, it's Bruce Arena, it's Siggy Schmidt. I think those are your top three of the modern era. And Bradley, I believe, reestablished himself as the best, one of the best currently right now, flat out. There were questions about it after the time at Swansea. There was a lot of things said about Bob Bradley that were completely incorrect after that time. And I think he came in with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove. And he did. Hey, I didn't think he could go into a season and have any success with Mark Anthony Kaye as his deep-lying central midfielder, and he did. But now you've made your point. You've shown that you know what you're doing. You've shown that you can do these things. Don't be so stubborn. Realize that, yes, you had success without a true six, but you might be better with a six. You might be better with more balance. You might be better being a little more pragmatic at times. Watch what Atlanta did. Go back and watch Atlanta's transformation from the game at Red Bull Arena to the Cup final. They realized when it was time to not be idealistic, and they lifted a trophy for it. So, Bob Bradley, LAFC, don't be so stubborn in 2019. You've got talent. You've got a special player in Carlos Vela. Realize that maybe you might need to deviate from your plan. You've made your point. Now it's time to go win things. And you're going to have to shore up the middle of the field to do it, because Laurent Simon is going to be in Toronto after he already left you anyway. Walker Zimmerman might not be back. You still don't have a six. Mark Anthony Kaye will be back after injury, but will he be the same? We'll have to see. Got to figure that out, but don't be so stubborn. Show sometimes that you have to be a little more defensive to get results. Seattle Sounders. This is a pivotal year for the Sounders in my book. What's your resolution for them?
Figure out what you're going to do with Nico Ladero, and also figure out what you're going to do with Jordan Morris. How healthy is Jordan Morris, and how does he reintegrate into your offensive game plan for me?
For me on the Sounders, it's the middle of the field.
Yep.
Chad Marshall, can he still do it? Roman Torres looks like he's not going to be there. Osvaldo Alonso's gone. He's a free agent. Christian Roldan, you've committed to him. You've committed to Jordan Morris with big contracts. Okay. I don't necessarily think those are bad moves. They feel like maybe a little more expensive than they needed to be, but not bad. I think Roldan's a special player. But is this going to be the year that they take that step back? And it feels like it is. And you mentioned Ladero. If the first half of this year it becomes readily apparent to you that, okay, yeah, we've invested in Roldan, we've invested in Morris, we've got some other young pieces, but we're not going to win anything this year. We're not going to win MLS Cup. Do you make that move in the summer and sell Nicholas Ladero? I think you do. If you're in contention for MLS Cup, then you ride it out. But if you're you get to the summer window and you're not going to win MLS Cup, and this is a tough decision to make if you're Seattle, because the last 3 years have been the same. You've been bad in the first half and ridiculous in the second half. But if you feel like quality of play, you're not an MLS Cup contender, I think you have to sell Nicholas Ladero in the summer and then reinvest for the next wave of who the Sounders can be. It's a pivotal year for them. I think this is the year where they're on that edge of the cliff going in, and they could continue to hang on and be in the top part of this league and be a cup contender, or they could fall off and fall way off if they're not careful. Ladero is the one, and selling him is the move that could keep them in the top part of the league if they do it at the right time. Sporting Kansas City, top team in the Western Conference in 2019. What's your New Year's resolution for SKC?
Well, considering how they got rid of Rubio and Shelton, but you bring in Rodney Wallace, Hurtado, Barath, and Kellen Rowe. Now that you've got them in, make sure that they're all on the same page as quickly as possible because you've got multiple competitions that you're chasing after. So my biggest, I guess, resolution for SKC is get everybody in as soon as possible so you can get on the same page for these multiple sprints that you're going to have to be a part of in a very challenging year on a bunch of different fronts.
My New Year's resolution is a question for SKC. Who's your game changer?
Yeah.
Who is your guy that when the chips are down, who are you turning to bail you out? I don't know if it's Johnny Russell, and then you got to figure out if Johnny Russell wants to be there long term. And if you need to show him that you want him to be there long term, then cut that check. Is it Felipe Gutierrez? Who is it? Who is the guy? Who do you turn to? Because Portland had those guys, and that's why Portland went to MLS Cup. Blanco, Valeri, they're going to get you out of trouble more often than not. Kansas City plays really good soccer, but I don't know who that guy is. And I think that's the difference between teams that play really good soccer and really good teams and championship contenders, is they have that guy that can put the team on their back. For Atlanta, Miguel Almiron, Joseph Martinez, both did that at different times, and you had other guys step up. But you knew who you were going to turn to in big moments. Portland, you knew who you were going to turn to in big moments. I don't know who that is for Kansas City. They need to figure that out. And if you don't have it, go get it. Go figure that out. Because Kansas City, the rest of the pieces are there. I think it's just it's so close to being an MLS Cup team. But they need that game changer. We'll come back to Atlanta United to finish up. But the New York Red Bulls, Supporters Shield. What are your New Year's resolutions for the Red Bulls?
Rip the rear view mirror from the inside of the car. Focus on going forward. Learn from what happened in the playoffs last year, especially if you're Chris Armas. Sometimes some of the hardest lessons are the ones that come at the most opportune time for the other guy. And I think Chris Armas got on-the-job training for heavyweight playoff competition. And that's for me on the touchline. And then for me, it's Tyler Adams is a question. How do you fill that? What about everybody else who's being rumored to leave? Bradley Wright Phillips isn't getting any younger. We all know, you and I both know from the time that we've seen Red Bulls 2, what the system is, who from the system can come up and fill those possible slots. And who do they bring in as that next heavyweight scorer in the next couple of seasons? So you don't have the massive drop-off, once again, waiting until too late to make a change instead of integrating something going forward. So stuff on the field and off for me for Red Bulls.
Yeah, it's both. Don't be afraid to be who you are. I think the Red Bulls have too often late in season, in the postseason, tried to be something that they're not. And we saw Jesse Marsch tinker a lot going into the postseason. Chris Armas did the same here, especially his game plan going into the Eastern Conference Finals. Coming into the first leg, it was bad, and he didn't change it. Be who you are. The press works. The press led you to a supporter shield. The press has led you to 3 of those. Do it. Do it all the way through. Trust it. Don't try to turn into a possession team in the postseason when that's not who you are. Don't try to change your shape as Jesse Marsch would play around with at times. Be who you are and trust it, because you have something that is very unique. Part of that is going to be trusting the guys who come through. And this is going to be a big thing in 2019 because Tyler Adams was maybe, one of the best representations of what you've been trying to be since you doubled down on this approach. And he's gone now. Is Christian Caceres, is he going to be the guy to replace Tyler Adams? He's not Tyler Adams. He can't be Tyler Adams. So what does that do? You have to double down on the system, and you have to completely believe in the system. And you have to believe in it the same way in Game 1 of the CONCACAF Champions League as you do in Game 1 of the MLS season, as you do in Game 1 of the postseason. And that's what the Red Bulls have to do to be successful in 2019, because they're not going to change their identity. They're not going to go out and go sign a bunch of superstars. They have to double down on that identity that they have established. And if you can't replace Tyler Adams like for like with one player, okay, then how do you make the system work to give you the things that Tyler Adams gave you? Does Sean Davis have to change his role a little bit? Do you need to tweak the positioning a little bit? Do you need to find those different connections on the field to get 2-for-1 to replace Tyler Adams? You have to figure that out, but you have to do it within the construct of your identity and who you are. Because every time you've tried to deviate from it, you've failed. Stop doing that. Just be who you are. The off-the-field side, the Red Bulls have to get people into that building. It's a beautiful stadium.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building. The only times right now that the Red Bulls are being talked about in the local media is when one of their sponsors takes empanadas to local media members, or they take cakes or cupcakes or whatever to local media members. That's it. Nobody's talking about this team. Nobody's talking about right now how are they going to replace Tyler Adams. Nobody's talking about what happened to Kaku in the second half of the season. I mean, I felt like we talked about that more than anybody else. Kaku disappeared in the second half of the season. They've got to figure that out. I don't know the short-term answer. I'm not in New York, but the excuses about, well, it's a big market and well, lines and parking and stop. People had a lot of excuses about why soccer wasn't going to work in Atlanta when it was announced that MLS was coming here. I read all of them. There were lots of them. They were shown to be false. So, if you want to accept being what the Red Bulls are right now, a team that can't sell out a playoff match after the best regular season in league history. Yeah, and don't try to compare it to the Braves not selling out playoff games after they had been to the playoffs for a decade and lost. This was the best season in Major League Soccer history, and you couldn't sell out the Eastern Conference Final.
And the visiting fans were louder than yours.
Well, some of that's down to game state. That's a different situation. But the fact is you couldn't get people in the building, period.
Yep, true.
And that happened far too often. There's no more excuses for it. You can keep writing them. You can keep saying them. That's fine. But soccer was not supposed to work in Atlanta. Soccer was not supposed to work in Orlando. Soccer was not supposed to work in other markets. Kansas City was not supposed to be a better soccer market than the New York Red Bulls have. These things were not supposed to happen, but they have. The Red Bulls have to stop with excuses, and they have to start looking in the mirror and changing their attitude and changing their mentality and doing what it takes to connect to soccer fans and people who would have an interest in soccer in New Jersey, in New York as well. And they have to find a way to get into the media. If they've got to buy time, go buy time. If they've got to wine and dine people, wine and dine people. You know, I don't think every sports editor, every sports writer, every sports talker in the New York metropolitan area is 70 years old and hates soccer. There's new people coming through every time. Build up relationships. Actually put yourself out there. Get to know these people. Give them something to talk about. Red Bulls, you should be bigger than you are. Your play on the field has shown that. Got to believe it, and you got to put the work in because it just has not been there. All right. New Year's resolutions for Atlanta United. John, what's yours?
Stay the course, but for fans, be patient because of the transition at one of the most impactful positions you could have in an offseason for a defending champ. And just for me, A, with that. B, with the youth that is in-house, continue to have it grow, work forward, and be ready for those MLS opportunities when they present themselves. And that's for those who were with ATO UTD2 working forward that we got the chance to see grow, and also the younger talent that was available for Tata Martino on the roster that won an MLS Cup. Continue to foster that growth, foster that talent, continue to have it be as impactful as it was, and get your transfer situation squared away because training camp and the season are going to be here sooner than everybody knows, and that window opens tomorrow.
The business stuff will work itself out. You're going to see these things go down. Pity Martinez was just named the South American Player of the Year by El País in Uruguay. It's an incredibly prestigious award. First Argentine to win it since 2010. You know, he said everything, you know, about coming to Atlanta except for holding up the jersey. So these things are going to work themselves out. These are things that are not out of your control, but they have to play out. So you have to just have that patience in this happening. So we'll get there when we get there, hopefully sooner rather than later. New Year's resolution for me for Atlanta United on the field is balance, is finding that balance between the different competitions that you're going to be faced with. You need a better performance in the U.S. Open Cup. If you're going to be, you know, a super club, as Alexi Lalas has anointed Atlanta United, the Open Cup's part of that. You know, you can't get bounced by, you know, an NASL team. You can't get bounced by the Chicago Fire at home. You've got to move forward in it, and you have the talent to do so. So that's going to be one. You have to balance CONCACAF Champions League and the MLS regular season early on. Look, the regular season has taken on more importance with the new playoff format. You need to be the top seed in the conference. You know, when home teams win knockout games at a 67% clip, you want to be the home team in those knockout games, and you want to have the Eastern Conference Final in your building. You want to have MLS Cup in your building. You saw how important it can be. So you can't punt on the regular season completely, but CONCACAF Champions League is a unique opportunity, so you have to be prepared to fight on two fronts. You have to be prepared to rotate the squad and balance the squad, and that's going to be the key for Frank de Boer coming in. And you know, a situation where we talked about it with Bob Bradley, where you're coming in with that chip on your shoulder that Carlos Bocanegra talked about. You've got a lot to prove. But I think Frank de Boer proves it over the long haul, not in March, not in the first half of the season. I think Frank de Boer proves that he is the manager that everybody thought he was at Ajax. I think he proves that over the first 2 years here. I don't think he proves it over the first 2 months. Winning a CONCACAF Champions League would maybe change that. But you can't do that completely at the expense of your MLS regular season because of the new format in the postseason. So you've got to be prepared to get results early on. Maybe you have to be a little more pragmatic in the early regular season. Maybe you have to go to D.C. and be safe and limit risk and fall back on some of the lessons that you had in the postseason. Maybe you have to pick your opportunities early to when you play and you open up and you take chances. That's okay. You got to find that balance. And that's going to be the key for Atlanta United on the field in 2018. It's going to be really important to have that balance overall. All right, let's hit the Twitters and try to catch everybody's responses and resolutions and everything before we finish up. Early on, we had some comments about Breck Shea, Tofka TLC, and ATL UTD fan number 1. Tofka said, I have no problem with the Shea as left wing back depth signing, but if we somehow resurrect his career in the process, then the rest of MLS is just plain incompetent. Joe, ATL UTD fan number 1, said, silly that Atlanta United fans are making too much about a one-year signing in Breck Shea, as if he's the replacement for Miggy and not a depth piece. Fans need to support the front office decision and wish a new five-stripe player well. We all want to be better in 2019, as I'm sure he does. I don't have a problem with questioning the decision. That's fine. I think some of the questions were a little strange. There started a narrative about Breck Shea being a problem in the locker room, and I've never heard that. And I've talked to some people who would know, and they didn't echo that either. Is Breck a unique personality? Sure. That doesn't mean a disruption. That doesn't mean a bad thing in the locker room. And I do think he is a depth piece overall. I think he's going to play some left back. I think he's going to play some left wing. I think he's going to be an option off the bench in matches, and I think he's going to get starts because I think there's going to be a lot of games for him to play. I don't think that necessarily means George Bellows not going to play. I think it means Bellows going to have to work that much harder to earn the time. But from a Breck Shea perspective, this is the best team Breck Shea's ever played on. Period. And don't come at me with, Stoke City. This is the best team Breck Shea's ever played on. It's the best team he's played on in a long time if you want to go back and look at those Dallas teams and say they were very good in 2011, 2012 before he went to England. This is an opportunity for Breck Shea, who was a national team player, to rebuild his career. So I think it's a smart signing. It increases the competition level. And I think, John, if we want Atlanta United to be that team that is the super club, you don't hand a position to George Bello or Mikey Ambrose or Jose Hernandez or whatever your option is on the left wing, if it's Pitti, if it's Barco, whoever, or Carlton. You don't hand it to them and say, you know what, we're not going to push you. You have an opportunity to go get Breck Shea, and according to Ivis Galarcep, for a fraction of what he was being paid in Vancouver. I think smart clubs do that, and you go bring that competition in. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If he's just a depth piece, he's just a depth piece. But you bring in a guy with talent, and Breck Shea has talent. That's undeniable.
Salary last year, for those who might be digging into that kind of a thing, it was $700 with total compensation just under $750. But for a franchise that's going to be
and he's not going to be a TAM player here, right? Paul Tenorio said that he will not be a TAM player here, so he's not going to be above $550,000 here. A fraction of $700. I don't know what that works out to be, but he's not anything like what he was being paid in Vancouver. That's key.
For the multiple competitions that Atlanta United are going to be involved in, regular season, Open Cup, Champions League, schedule compression, you get into all of these variables involving all these competitions, you're going to need depth pieces if you're going to make runs to chase after the hardware in each of these competitions. To have Breck Shea, an experienced player who can really help you out along the line, to have him in here, I think pieces like Breck Shea challenge those who are already here, and at the same time makes you better with all of these competitions. So I saw zero issue with bringing a player like Breck Shea in, and I'm looking forward to seeing who else is brought in to help out with depth, to help out with challenging the younger players and getting them game ready for multiple competitions on multiple fronts. So I looked at this, and for me, it was an instant check plus. I'm like, okay, cool. Bring them in, experienced pieces. I get it. So for me, zero qualm about a pickup like this at all. And that's, I guess, for me, the fun of the offseason is that you get to sit there and say, okay, so who else do you get to bring in? Who else are you chasing after? Who else would you like to bring in to help you chase after all of this multiple pieces of hardware?
Air horn.
Uh-oh.
Atlanta United announced today it's received $50,000 in general allocation money in exchange for the discovery rights of Argentine forward Lucas Rodriguez. That's coming from DC United because DC United's going to get the Lucas Rodriguez deal done now that they've made this move. So $50,000 in GAM, that's a nice little pickup. A lot of people jumped to the conclusion that the report that Atlanta United had paid like $1.5 million for option rights on Lucas Rodriguez was 100% true. It was one report. It could be. I don't know. It might not be. But there was a lot of play with that. I think he was the backup in case Ezequiel Barco's deal did not get done. But once the Barco deal got done, unless things really got weird, you weren't going to bring in Lucas Rodriguez. It's going to go to D.C. And now, it's Rodriguez. You need to get Acosta on a long-term deal, and you got to figure out what you're doing with Yamil Assad and Zoltan Stieber. Assad is back with Velez training. That's what happened last year. Doesn't mean a deal doesn't get done, although Velez is talking more like they want to keep him now. I don't know if they're playing hardball or not. So Lucas Rodriguez is a big get for DC United. And Rodriguez, Acosta, Rooney, and whoever's on the other wing, whether it's Assad, whether it's Stieber, whether it's Paul Areola, that's a dangerous attack for DC United. And I think they're going to be there deep in the Eastern Conference playoffs. They're going to be a contender, and Atlanta United's going to have to deal with DC as the season goes on. Joe Bost on Twitter got to watch part of the Cup replay last night. Awesome to relive it again and saw some things I missed in real time. Little things mostly, players, their expressions, emotion. Yeah, I was the same way. Like I was trying not to cough up a lung last night, so I saw that the replay was on. I caught it at halftime and watched the parade coverage as well. Fox Sports Southeast had the parade coverage replayed after the MLS Cup replay, so that was really cool. Watching the game back, a lot of the game was fairly fresh for me. I'd watched a little bit of the super cool Homer cast that somebody put on YouTube. It stayed up for a while. I hope it stays up, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But I watched some of that back. Somebody took our radio call and combined it with the TV footage, which was pretty cool. And it was cool to see it because it's somebody who's from Atlanta who lives in Maine now and does this for Georgia football. So good company for me to be in anyway. I don't think Mike takes it the same way, but I was kind of excited to be in that plane. So that's pretty cool.
It's all right. Hang on.
No. You can go find it. It's there. You can go find it.
It's there.
Go find it. You can go find it. It'll pop up. Go find it. I'm not.
Yep. All right.
I'm not blasting it. I want it to be somewhat under the radar. Anyway.
True. Okay.
So I had seen a lot of the game. The celebration after the game, the emotion from Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, and like watching him run around and hug Almiron and Martinez, and then I think he had another moment with Martinez, and then Kazan, and just it felt like he was really taking an opportunity to talk to some of these guys too as he was embracing them. That was really cool to see. I hadn't noticed that watching it live and all the chaos. And then watching the parade coverage back, because I didn't get a chance to watch that at all. That was a lot of fun to see just how much fun Jillian Sakovitz and Dan Gargan and Kevin Egan were having with the whole thing. So it was pretty cool to watch that back last night. I watched as much of it as I could back from halftime of the Cup final all the way through the 2 hours of parade coverage. It was pretty cool. The parade stuff, there were things that I didn't see, being in the parade. It wasn't so much the parade, it was the celebration at the Home Depot backyard. And there were so many little moments that I didn't really get a chance to see very well that were super cool. So that was awesome. Thanks, Fox Sports Southeast, for putting that on and giving me some entertainment, and Joe Bost and probably some others as well.
Yes. Jackson Popkin is digging into a team that we did not dig into for New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, because they're not on the field yet in 2019. They'll be on the field in 2020. Jackson said, I've been in Miami over the holidays, and Inter has been really quiet on the community outreach front, maybe because of the land deals, but most of the work has been done by supporters groups since the logo reveal. In 2019, I hope they fulfill the potential for MLS support here. I get it. I think you don't want to leave it too late. You don't want to wait too long to start the process of getting ready for your first season. And they've done that off the field, bringing in Paul McDonough, good hire. Looks like they're building out the academy. There's talk about Javier Morales ending up there, which would be very cool. It's time to start hitting the ground because they can bring in players in this January window. I don't think they're going to bring anybody major, but if there's guys out there that you want to be on your team in 2020, Paul McDonough's going to go make those moves. He did here in Atlanta. It didn't work out. Alex Tambakis ended up not being the guy in goal, and Junior Burgos ended up not being the guy. I think Burgos made some bad decisions in where he was going to play in the 2016 year. Tambakis just didn't quite make that jump, but he's actually ended up having a great year at North Carolina in the USL, and I think he'll be a piece there for quite a while. So Miami could make some moves in January. I think it is time to start ramping it up, and now that it looks like things are heading in the right direction, their next big announcement is probably where they're going to play in 2020. You know, is that going to be Marlins Park? Is that going to be Hard Rock Stadium? What's it going to be? And start making those moves. So hopefully they make that announcement early in 2019, and the summer window they start getting linked to some big names, and you go from there. But, yeah, I think Miami is in a good position. Now's the time to start ramping it up.
Shiva with a question. A lot of people, when they watch games in MLS, their first comment is, it's too slow. What do you think the league should do to get into more fast attacking and attractive soccer to draw more audience?
The league can't dictate how teams play. I think people who say that are thinking about the league like 5-10 years ago. It doesn't play slow to me right now as a whole. If you go watch Colorado and San Jose, yeah, because those were two bad teams this year. I think the better talent you have in the league, the faster you can play. So you can't dictate to teams to play a fast, exciting style. That's up to teams to decide, up to managers. But keep allowing teams to bring in more talent and keep increasing the level of the player coming into the league, and the games will move faster. The other thing you got to factor in, too, is something that Mexico deals with. You know, you've got some pretty extreme temperatures that you're going to be playing in, and the game will slow down in those scenarios. It has to. You can't play 100 miles an hour when it's 100 degrees. You're not going to be able to do that. So there will be times when the game does play a little bit slower, and there will be times when teams also try to slow the game down against teams that they can't go out and run with or play that fast. So I don't think it's something the league can do other than just giving teams more to work with in terms of signing better players. That's what I would come back to. I think it's a smart move for teams to play faster and more entertaining soccer, because I've always thought that that's going to give you a better base of support than playing negative soccer, because if you play negative defensive soccer, you better win a championship. If you don't, fans are going to turn on you. If you play exciting, entertaining soccer, you're going to get more of the benefit of the doubt from fans. Although at some point you do have to win something. But you get more time, I think, if you play a better style. And to me, a better style does include playing faster. So it's just about talent. I think the league is much faster than it used to be. I've watched games from the Premier League that,
yes,
it's just bad. And whether it's fast or slow, it's just bad. So different styles, different personalities, different leagues. Sometimes people think fast means better, and it doesn't always, because the Premier League generally is fast, I think, in the way they play. But, man, you go watch, I can't remember what game it was we were talking about. Was it Arsenal playing Brighton recently?
Yeah, Brighton was, negative. Yeah, Chris Hughton basically was just in there to try to get out of there with a point.
Brighton was hideous, and they played fast. They played the ball as fast as possible, because anytime they tried to take more than 2 touches, they were going to lose it. And not because Arsenal was pressing them, just because they were bad. The Premier League defaults to fast somewhat because of that direct style. That doesn't mean it's better. I think in general, though, and this is a very philosophical question and answer, Shiva, In general, better players can play faster and pull it off. Worse players, when they try to play fast, they can't do it. And in that game, that was a prime example to me. Brighton, when they did try to string together 2-3 passes, it was hideous. It was awful. Their best solution was just to kick it as far away from their own goal as they possibly could and see what happens. So I think MLS is fine. I think the style of play is fine. I think the pace of play is fine. I think it's getting better every year. But I like the variety. I like that you're starting to see teams that are developing identities. It just needs to continue to ramp up, continue on the path that it's on. I think it'll be okay.
El Mataflow says the Jegson, Mendez, and Danny Acosta signings are good for Orlando, and I hope to see more interesting signings like that in the future. Fun fact, Orlando posted a graphic of the wrong player for their Mendez announcement, which they deleted and had to repost.
Yeah. These things happen. Mendez and Acosta I want to see. I'm a little worried about a guy who lost his job in Real Salt Lake. If he's going to be an upgrade for Orlando, he might walk in and be the starting left back. Mendez, we'll see how long it takes him to adjust. The reason I worry about Mendez is Josue Colman in his first year. I don't know if that was a Colman thing. I don't know if that was a Jason Christ thing. I don't know if it was a James O'Connor thing. I don't know if it was a veteran leadership of the team thing. If it was Kleshton, Johnson, Dwyer, that group not really getting Colman and not giving him a platform to be successful. I hope now that you're getting younger in Acosta and Mendez that you do start to see this team turn a little bit. I want Orlando to be a quality team. I do. It'd be good for the Atlanta-Orlando rivalry. It'd be good for the league. But, man, I just wonder. I really do. Mendez has got some big boots to fill in Yoshi Yotun, and we'll see if he's up to it.
Train says that, and listen to the Glenn Davis show often, it seems like Houston's a big puzzle. Hope it works out. And Trey Morrison, his resolutions to us here at the show, he wants to listen to all the new Patreon SDH content, get a new job that pays enough to afford Atlanta United season tickets for me and Ezra. Currently efforting, looks hopeful. Hope it happens. And 3, win the Quintefecta.
Yeah, the Quintefecta.
Mm-hmm. And there was some boot. There was a boot included, so I'm guessing
I'll just
golden
win
boot is theirs.
I'll take the trifecta for sure. I'm not going to be greedy. If next time I go to the track, if I could win the exacta box, I'll be happy. Jeez, not even a
did that once when I was 14, and I haven't done a thing since.
Nice.
Kefsey is here.
Yes.
For 2019. Will teams that y'all think haven't found their identity yet need to have found it by the All-Star break? And will the extra playoff slot allow latecomers, or will the new format push early results?
The new playoff format will do a little of both. It will allow latecomers, but it will also push early results for the elite. I think every team's in a different boat in terms of the ones who need to develop that identity. Some have time to do it. Some, there are no expectations for 2019 or no realistic ones, and they'll have time to do it. I mean, Orlando should not be thinking about anything other than developing that identity. Others, San Jose, you're not thinking about winning a title right now. Colorado, you're not thinking about winning a title right now. You have time. So Minnesota is one just because that group has been there going into year 3 that I do think they have to show something by the All-Star break, or you're going to look at changes. San Jose has made their change. Orlando already made their change. Colorado, maybe, but I think they doubled down on Hudson, and they're going to continue with it. I don't think they would be worse off to make a midseason change. I think at this point you give him the 3 years and you see what you got. Dallas is committed to Luchi Gonzalez for a while, so I think you're okay. Chandler Creel had a couple responses to some of our resolutions.
Yep.
On Atlanta, he said, we need to keep our mentality and attitude of being hospitable and welcoming everyone new to the team and the sport. It's just more fun that way. I don't see that going away. I don't see that changing here in Atlanta. I think that is Atlanta as a city. I think it's Atlanta as an area, and I think it's Atlanta as a soccer city. So I don't think that changes. Chandler on Portland. Some members of Timber's Army need to get off their high horse, keep Portland weird, not arrogant. I agree. I mean, in general, I think soccer fans in 2019, if I could give you a resolution, be more welcoming to new fans, and you'll see what's happened here in Atlanta happen for you and your markets. Like, be willing to put your arm around a new fan and welcome them to the collective. And if they ask a question that you're like, oh man, really? Don't roll your eyes. Talk to people. Get to know people who might have different thoughts and different experiences with soccer and all that. Like, be more open to it because it'll benefit the game. Soccer's grown a ton in this country, but I think you do still have to have that mentality of growing it and being an ambassador for it in your sphere of influence. And I don't think you do that about anything by being arrogant and being on a high horse about it and saying that, well, if you don't know as much as I do, then sorry. I don't think that helps bands when that becomes their fan base. I don't think that helps, anything. So I hope that can change. I hope that can be something left in the dust because American football fans don't have that mentality. I mean, on a Super Bowl Sunday, I don't hear football fans being angry because you've got a bunch of people at the bar who don't know anything about the 3-4 defense. I don't hear that. I don't hear people mad about that over the college football championship game. I don't hear people, across the bar being upset because you didn't follow National Signing Day for one of these teams. So don't do that for soccer, please. You weren't. I didn't see gatekeeping about the Braves making the playoffs this year and that bandwagon swelling. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just be excited about it. Be open to it. It's a good thing. Chandler also said City Football Group needs to do the team and their fans a favor and put some plans on paper for a new stadium. Easier said than done, Chandler. I think the land issues in New York are making this very, 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 very difficult, and we'll have to see if they can figure it out. I think it's harder. I don't think it's for a lack of trying. I don't think NYC is just saying, you know what, we don't really care about a new stadium. I think they realize that they don't want to be at Yankee Stadium long term. They look at the amount of money they're probably paying to use it. That's going to remind you every season. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. They do need to figure it out sooner rather than later, but I do think they're trying. I don't think they're sitting on their hands and not making any effort on it. Championship trains on Red Bulls, John. I want to get your thoughts on this. Pretty clear the front office of Red Bulls don't want media attention. Remember them denying media access to a player in the playoffs. The PR guy for Red Bulls literally came out against him. Bananas.
Disappointing. And
there was more to that. There was definitely more to that than I think the way it played out. I don't think anybody looked good in the way that played out. I really don't.
No.
That was bad all the way around. It reinforced this narrative, and that's a shame. I don't think any of it was handled well. That was a problem all the way around. But yeah, I mean, Red Bulls have to. I think they have to change their approach in the way that they deal with the media and growing that fan base.
And let's see, Tafka says, outside of Open Cup and Champions League, my focus is not on wins and losses. I want to see Bello, Carlton, Barco, and Robinson put into the best 15 roles on the club.
I want to see them play like they're in the best 15 roles on the club. I don't want to see them put there without them earning it.
Right.
I think that's a big difference. And that's why you go get a Breck Shea. because I think it pushes Bello. It pushes Hernandez as well. I think we forget about Jose Hernandez a lot. Jose Hernandez might be the guy at left back. I think Breck Shea is going to push Carlton and Barco as well. Like, you have to have that competition. If you don't, and you just hand it to these guys, they can't become as good as they possibly could. But you have to balance that, and that's why my resolution was finding that balance. You have to balance that with giving them opportunities when they earn them. So it is finding an in-between. It's not easy, and it's what top clubs struggle with. But they have to find that balance, and they have to get I want to see, I think as for Tofka, the way I would word it is I want to see Bello, Carlton, Barco, and Robinson performing at a consistent level that they are among the best 15 players in the club.
Yeah.
That's where I want to see it.
And we did get a clarification from Trey on his quinfecta.
Okay.
Champions League, Open Cup, Campeones, Supporters, MLS Cup, and also Joseph getting Golden Boot again.
That's a lot, dude. That's a lot.
That's a resolution.
I'll take. That's beyond a resolution. I will take. I'll take one of the team trophies, honestly, and be good. If you're in the running for multiple trophies and you win one, at this stage of where the club is and what 2019 is going to be, that's completely fine by me. It's not a failure if you don't win multiple trophies. You need to win one, though. And I don't think Campeones counts as that. I think you need to win one of CONCACAF, Open Cup, Supporter Shield, MLS Cup. I think you need to win one of those four. And they're weighted differently. I mean, if you win CONCACAF, obviously that would be bigger than U.S. Open Cup. If you win Supporter Shield, that would be bigger than Open Cup. I think anything would be bigger than Open Cup. But if you win Open Cup, I don't think the year's a failure. So I think you got to win one of those four and be in the running for, another one or two. But you don't have to win multiple trophies with a new manager, with your first time in this type of calendar. I don't think you have to win multiple trophies for the year not to be a failure, but I do think you need to win one for the year to be seen as a success.
And it was ATL UFC Stilly and Tofka getting into a bit of a back and forth about the Supporter Shield. Stilly wants the Supporter Shield. New playoff format makes the Cup a crapshoot after you get in, but while we still have the core of our team, I think we can go for everything this year.
To me, look, the Supporter Shield is the harder trophy to win. It's the hardest trophy to win outside of CONCACAF. I agree with that. We can fight it all we want. We can make all the proclamations we want, but you are defined as a champion in this league by winning MLS Cup, flat out. So that's what you want to win every year, period. How are the New York Red Bulls looked at versus Atlanta United, Toronto FC, Seattle, Portland, LA Galaxy, Sporting Kansas City? In the times that the Red Bulls have won 3 shields in those years, are they talked about like the teams that I just listed off that won MLS Cup? No, they're not. So it's a great accomplishment. On its own, it's not enough. It's not enough. MLS Cup is what defines the champion of this league. And you can like it or not like it. You can have the argument about which is harder, crapshoot. I'm with you on all that. But you are defined as a champion in this league by winning MLS Cup. It's that simple. So that has to be your target. And for me, if that means losing the Supporter Shield to prepare for the postseason, if that means focusing on your team peaking later in the year as opposed to early and sacrificing points that cost you the Supporter Shield, you do it. Because MLS Cup is the ultimate trophy. And I know some soccer purists don't like that. go talk to soccer purists in Mexico and Costa Rica and other countries that have playoffs, and you're going to get the same argument. It is about lifting the trophy at the end of the year, and the trophy for this league as champion is MLS Cup. It's just how it is.
I think we're somewhat officially caught up on the Twitters.
Yep. I think it's about that time to sign off in the most extended stoppage time of all time. So
yeah, I think we did break the record, didn't we?
Yeah, it's fine. It was one of those days. It was fun to go through all the teams and resolutions. I'll throw a bonus one out there that we haven't talked about enough right now, and we will in 2019. NWSL, hire a commissioner.
Yes.
Plan for the future, like now.
Get Sky Blue sorted out.
You should have done that last year because you should have had expansion teams ready to go in 2019 in a World Cup year. You're not. So you're going to have to do what you've tried to do every time after a World Cup and capitalize on the momentum. Hopefully the U.S. women's national team has a performance that there is momentum to capitalize on. Hire a commissioner. Develop that strategic plan. Washington Spirit looks like they have new ownership, but they've hired a longtime youth coach to be their new manager. That's a risk. Orlando Pride still don't have a new manager. Draft's right around the corner. These are things that the league has to continue to take steps on. And the women's national team going into a World Cup year, it's a massive year for women's soccer in this country. We'll be following it. We'll be getting a weekly podcast started in the next month to cover the women's national team, NWSL, everything about the women's game and women's soccer in the United States and how all of that intersects. So that will be kicking off in 2019. Our Patreon coverage will greatly expand in 2019. We'll have a weekly Atlanta soccer history workshop session that'll be a lot of fun to do with you guys. We'll also have a weekly just Q&A for our patrons, for our Patreon members. Go check out patreon.com/soccer down here. Thanks to everybody who signed up in the last couple of weeks. It's really blown up in a big way, and that helps us do what we want to continue to do, and we want to continue to be the best show covering soccer on a regular basis there is. And we're going to continue to try to do that. So thanks to all of you who allow us to do this. Hopefully 2018 was a good one for you. Hopefully 2019 will be an even better one for you. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back on Wednesday, January 2nd. Mucha plata, y'all.
Be safe tonight. Have fun, because we want you with us as we go forward. So have fun tonight. Celebrate the new year and the turn of the calendar. Mucha plata, y'all.